Right now, somewhere in your home, your jumping spider is asleep. She is hanging from a single silk thread, her legs curled inward, her body motionless. And inside her tiny head, a head the size of a poppy seed, something is happening that nobody saw coming. Her eyes are moving, not the outside of her eyes, the inside. And every few minutes, her legs twitch, just like a dog twitches when it dreams about chasing something. For most of human history, we believed that dreams were a uniquely mammalian thing. Maybe birds, maybe a few clever reptiles. The idea that a spider, a creature with a brain so small it shouldn't be able to do anything, might be having dreams felt absurd. It felt almost insulting to ask the question. And then, in 2022, somebody asked it anyway. What scientists filmed that night changed how we think about consciousness itself. This is what they saw, and what it might mean for the tiny, 8-legged dreamer living in your home right now. The discovery, like a lot of important discoveries, was an accident. It was the early days of the pandemic. A young researcher in Germany was locked out of her lab. So she did what curious scientists do when the world shuts down. She brought the work home. She collected local jumping spiders, Avarcha arcuata, kept them in clear plastic boxes on her windowsill, and waited for things to settle down. One night, she came home from dinner, glanced at the boxes, and froze. Every single spider was hanging upside down from the lid, suspended from a single, almost invisible line of silk, motionless, like tiny ornaments. She had never seen anything like it. Nobody had documented it. There were no papers, no field notes, no folklore. Just 30-something spiders hanging from the ceiling of their boxes, doing absolutely nothing. She set up an infrared camera, and she let it run all night. What came back on that footage was the kind of thing that changes a career, because the spiders weren't doing nothing, not at all. Every few minutes, in waves that came back with almost mechanical regularity, their legs would twitch, their bodies would tremble, and this is the part that stopped everyone cold. Inside their heads, you could see their retinas moving, sliding side to side, just like the eyes of a dreaming human. She wasn't looking at sleeping spiders, she was looking at something nobody had ever recorded in an arachnid before. To understand why this discovery took until 2022, when humans have been living alongside jumping spiders for tens of thousands of years, you have to understand something strange about how they see. Most animals move their eyes by rotating the entire eyeball. You do it constantly right now without thinking about it. Cats do it, birds do it, even some fish do it. Spiders cannot. Their 8 eyes are fixed in place. From the outside, they look like beautiful, lifeless little marbles staring out at the world. For centuries, people assumed that meant spiders couldn't really look at anything, that their vision was a passive flood of light, not an active gaze. That assumption was wrong. A jumping spider's 2 largest eyes, the principal eyes, the big front ones, don't move on the outside. But behind the lens, deep inside the head, there are tiny muscular tubes that hold the retina. And those tubes can twist, slide, and pivot. The spider doesn't move her eyes, she moves the back of her eyes, from the inside. It is one of the strangest visual systems on the planet, and for most of history, completely invisible to us. You couldn't watch it happen. The spider's exoskeleton was in the way. Until somebody noticed that baby jumping spiders, in their first weeks of life, are see-through. Their exoskeletons haven't hardened yet. Their pigmentation hasn't filled in. If you put a tiny, translucent spiderling under a careful camera at the right angle, you can see straight through her head. You can watch the retinal tubes move in real time. You can watch a spider, quite literally, look around inside her own skull. That's what the researcher pointed her infrared camera at. And that's how, for the first time in history, somebody watched a spider's eyes move while she was asleep. Here is what the footage showed. 34 spiderlings hanging in their silk harnesses, sleeping through the night. And roughly every 20 minutes, a wave would pass through them. First, the retinas, sliding back and forth in tight, fast bursts. Then the legs, a small twitch here, a curl there. Sometimes the whole body would tremble for a few seconds and then go still again. Then nothing. Then, 20 minutes later, the wave would come back. This pattern, bursts of eye movement paired with muscle twitches, repeating at regular intervals through the night, is exactly the signature of REM sleep in mammals. In you, in your dog, in the songbird at the feeder outside your window. REM is the sleep phase where, in humans, dreams happen. The eyes flick around behind closed lids as if watching something. The body twitches in tiny, suppressed echoes of movement. The brain is, by some measures, more active than when we are awake. And here it was, in a spider. A creature so small you could lose her in the folds of a curtain. Now, and this matters, the scientists are careful. They didn't say spiders dream. Nobody can say that yet. What they said was, this looks like REM. It behaves like REM. The timing is right. The body signals are right. The visual signals are right. But whether there is anything happening inside that tiny head that we would recognize as a dream, a memory replaying, a feeling being processed, a face being remembered, we don't know. We can't ask her. What we can say is this: the assumption that dreaming requires a big brain or a warm-blooded body or millions of years of mammalian evolution just got a lot harder to defend. So let's sit with the question for a moment. Why would a spider dream at all? In humans, REM sleep does a lot of things. It consolidates memory, it processes emotion, it helps the brain throw out information it doesn't need and keep the information it does. People who don't get REM sleep don't just feel tired, their thinking starts to break down. And here's the part that turns the whole thing on its head. Jumping spiders are not the brainless little creatures we used to think they were. They plan routes around obstacles. They remember prey they cannot currently see. They recognize individual humans, as we covered in the last video. They can be trained, in laboratories, to solve simple puzzles. They make choices. That kind of cognition, in any other animal, comes with a price tag, and part of that price tag is sleep. The brain has to rest. The information has to be sorted. The day has to be filed away. If jumping spiders are doing the cognitive things we now know they do, it would be strange, almost stranger, if they didn't have something like a dreaming phase to handle it all. What would she dream about? We can guess, but we can't really know. Maybe a fly she missed. Maybe the shape of a hand that fed her. Maybe the patch of light by the window where she likes to hunt. Maybe a face she has seen often enough to file away as safe. The honest answer is that we don't know what is happening behind those translucent eyes. But for the first time, we have evidence that something is happening. Something with structure, something with rhythm, something that, in any other animal on Earth, we would call dreaming without hesitation. Take a moment, the next time it gets dark, and look for her. She probably won't be where you expect. Jumping spiders tend to hide their sleep. Find a high corner, a fold of curtain, the underside of a leaf. Most of the time, you'll never see it happen, but if you ever do catch her, hanging from a thin line of silk, legs tucked in close, perfectly still, you are looking at something that nobody, in the entire history of human beings living alongside spiders, knew how to see until a few years ago. You are looking at a small, eight-eyed creature, the size of your fingernail, going through the same nightly cycle that you go through, the same waves of stillness and twitching, the same regular bursts of activity behind quiet eyes, the same ancient pattern, running in a body separated from yours by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. If she is dreaming, she might be dreaming about the room you are sitting in right now, about the light from the lamp, about the shape that fed her this morning, about the small, careful hand that lifted her enclosure and put her back down, about you. We may never be able to prove it, but the door has been opened, and it cannot be closed again. 100 years ago, we believed only humans dreamed. Then we admitted that dogs dream, then cats, then birds. Then octopuses, with their distributed alien minds, dreaming in shifting colors across their skin. Now we have to make room on the list for spiders. And if spiders dream, spiders, with brains the size of a poppy seed, with bodies older than the dinosaurs, then the question is no longer whether dreaming is rare. The question is how far down it goes. How small a brain can hold a dream. How simple a creature can be, and still, for a few minutes every night, leave its body behind and go somewhere else. We don't have an answer yet, but the next time you see her hanging from a thin silver thread in the corner of a room, perfectly still, except for a tiny tremor in her legs every few minutes, you'll know she isn't just sleeping. She is doing something we used to think was ours. Next time, we're going to look at something even smaller. What happens inside her head when she's awake, and why scientists now believe she's making decisions you would recognize. If you want to keep following the science of what jumping spiders are really doing, the way they think, the way they remember, the way they sleep, subscribe and stay close. There is so much more coming. And honestly, the deeper this rabbit hole goes, the stranger and more beautiful it gets. I'll see you in the next one.